Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone else. While this is a meeting of the Injustice League of Supervillains, we try to be representative of villainy in all forms. And while I know this online format is not ideal, I'm certain we all prefer the confines of Zoom to the dark, cold cells of Arkham Asylum. As your esteemed leader, the Joker, I've called you all here today for a proposition. Orders, basically. But I believe our recent villainy has simply been short-sighted and needs adaptation. So let's start off with the obvious as to why we're stuck in this format, with everybody's favorite farm-themed supervillain, Scarecrow. Scarecrow, pleased as we were with your experiments with pathogens, I believe your recent efforts have gotten out of hand. And in the future, just a tip, try not to carry canisters of highly infectious disease when you're flying above Wuhan, because now everybody thinks that China came up with COVID. And explain to me how we can have an entire pandemic based on a bat, and the Batman remains a hero. How does this happen? I feel the lion's share of the blame lies with the members of this council that we call global leaders. I'm talking about Johnson, Trump, Erdogan, and Bolsonaro, all you guys who buried your heads in the sand about COVID so that you could focus on your xenophobia agenda, wherein you blame every newcomer into the country for all your problems. You know you're just reusing that plan that went so well 80 years ago, a whole new hero spawned out of it. We don't need another Captain America. He was annoying enough for a Marvel crossover. We hate everyone equally, without bias. And speaking of bias, we need to talk about the news. Look, I'm in charge of the jokes around here, and Tucker Carlson and Piers Morgan are not funny. Alex Jones was a fine pet project with his fake news media, but this is going too far. At this rate, no one's going to believe our evil plans when they're reported because nobody trusts the news. At this rate, hell could freeze over tomorrow, and no one would even read the headline. Or so says our informant, Prince Andrew. Ultimately, it's clear a change is needed. So I propose the SVI. Everybody say it with me. Sustainable Villainy Initiative. Oh, Bane, if you could speak up a bit, your mask is kind of muffling your voice. Although, kudos to you for predicting the hottest fashion trend of 2021. Way to be ahead of that whole flattened curve type deal. But this is a very simple plan, and it all starts with government. We need to push for democratic principles. Now, I know, that sounds crazy, but hey, look at who you're talking to. If we've learned anything from these past few years, totalitarianism does not allow for good villainy, because the villain is in charge. President Xi and Kim Jong-un have shown us we can't compete. Congrats to you guys, by the way, but the Great Firewall, the AI, and the new social credit score make our job pretty much useless. The government's already telling the people that they're worthless, so what are we supposed to do? And when's the last time you heard of a supervillain rising up in North Korea? When's the last time you heard of anything in North Korea? No. Villainy needs room to innovate. And, well, speaking of Facebook, I believe social media is also an important point of change we need to focus on, and I think the biggest way to do that is simply remove Mark Zuckerberg's batteries. That android has had enough time online, and he's starting to scare me. Not to mention the fact that he's ruined an entire generation of potential supervillains by convincing them that cyberbullying is somehow the same thing as real life. Honestly, I blew up the first Starbucks in my town when I was 11, and they think that sending mean Facebook messages is somehow on the same plane? Come on, step it up, guys. And for the regular media, when it comes to fixing that part, we'll just wipe out the TV personalities, poison the opinion writers, and enslave all those political cartoonists, because, let's face it, I think everybody's lair could do with a bit of new wall art. But besides that, we also need to focus on public health. Now, we've been very successful over these past few years in making half of the global population fat and ashamed. But now, crowds can't run from a terrifying scene, it's more of just a slow shuffle, and it's not nearly as intense, so I propose we start pushing for veganism. It's the perfect way to ruin appetites and conversation all while keeping everyone healthy. We can try poisoning meat-packing plants and laughing as we watch the news try to frame us as the bad guy. Honestly, all we're doing is getting people to eat their vegetables. It's like standardized testing. You can't argue against it, but it's horrible for everyone involved. Or we could push for electric cars, be the next Elon Musk, and that way, the next time Canada gets hit by a big trucking protest, the trucks are so quiet that nobody knows it until they're already there. Brilliant! And I know, there are going to be some of you who disagree with this, and unfortunately, this is a league-wide change. It is mandatory, so if you don't like it, I direct you to the door. Unfortunately, the door does also lead to the SVI blood donation program, which is a great cause. We're making sure that nobody bleeds dry unless we want them to. This is in partnership with our partners at Goldman Sachs, which is the important part, because all of our entrants will be taken to their maximum potential. So be careful about the next choice you make, because it could just be your last one. And for all of you who make the right decision, in my eyes anyway, to stay here, I applaud that. Because I believe in doing so, you are fulfilling the most basic cause a villain can, and the most important one. By doing the SVI, by following the Sustainable Villainy Initiative, we ensure that we live to fight another day. Thank you.